a study that's gone out recently, and it's gaining a lot of attention in the UK, and a lot of people are talking about it. And it was on the news, and my friend just sent me an article, and this is the news, one of the big newspapers where I live, and the article says, butter isn't bad for you after all. Scots researchers claim advice on fatty foods was flawed. Butter isn't bad for you after all. Fatty foods like butter aren't bad for you after all, Scots researchers have claimed. Health guidelines issued more than 30 years ago told us to avoid butter and full fat milk in a bid to slash heart disease. But a review by Zoe Harcombe, who is a person that's trying to sell a diet book, la-di-da-di-da, University of West Scotland, has showed this is wrong. Something ordered in 1983 lacked solid trial evidence and led to the creation of low-fat spreads and cholesterol, blah blah blah. Levels said that such advice introduced, blah blah blah. Now, here's the point about this. What they're trying to make us believe is that in 1983 some information came out that butter was bad for you and that everyone stopped eating butter, and that like the entire country just, no one was eating butter anymore, it just stopped. Is that what happened? No. Everyone kept eating butter. No one paid any attention to the information. No one bothered changing their diet. And yeah, so margarine and stuff like that came around, and people started eating supposedly low-fat spreads, but they're just fat as well. And this is just a lot of nonsense. Now, the science of nutrition, this is the problem here. There is no confusion about nutrition. People like to believe, well, not like to believe, but people in the general public think there's like confusion, like, oh, butter's good for you one day, then it's bad for you, then, oh, I might as well just eat whatever I like. And it's a load of nonsense, because the science of nutrition is very much like any other science, and they're pretty sure about what's good for us and what's bad for us, and they have known this for 50, 60, 70, 80, I don't know how many years. But they've always known saturated fat causes heart disease. Well, not always, but they've known that for an awfully long time. They worked that out a long time ago, and every single study they ever do on this shows that a diet that is high in saturated fat, which is just the standard diet is high in saturated fat. The diet that you see people eating, even a supposedly healthy version of that, is a diet that is dangerously high in saturated fat and causes heart disease. It is the cause of heart disease. If you take that diet and change it and leave everything else about that person's life exactly the same, have them still smoke, have them still do no exercise, have them still have, negative relationships, get not enough sunlight, not enough rest, whatever, their heart disease will go away. That is what is shown in the research of guys like Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, Dean Ornish and people like that. And this stuff is pretty solid, but the problem is there's still people who are trying to make money out of creating all sorts of diets and fads and all this nonsense, and this harms people. This is just really irresponsible that any newspaper or any publication or anything would actually print a headline, butter isn't bad for you, and then try and make people, convince people the idea that, oh yeah, I stopped eating butter. Yeah, we all stopped eating butter and we all got bad. Here's the reality of what's happened. People were told to eat a lower fat diet. They didn't. But people have eaten more processed foods, and in the process of doing that, they've eaten slightly more processed foods like sugar than they have fat, slightly more. And I was just on a conversation with someone where they were telling me, an authority on this kind of information, he told me that what's happened is the amount of fat as a percentage of calories is decreased about 1%. So we've eaten more fat and eaten more sugar, but we've just eaten a bit more sugar than the amount of fat. We're still eating the same amount of fat as 30 years ago. It's still the same. There's still people eating huge wads of butter and everything. And if that's your choice, that's your choice. But the thing is, how do you make a choice if you don't have the information? How do you make a responsible choice for yourself, your family, your own health, if you don't, if the media continues to print this stuff? And and this is just a PR exercise for this Zoe Harcombe that's created a diet called the Harcombe diet or something, Institute of Clinical Exercise and Health Science. Here's the only diet that works. The only diet that works is a species-specific diet for human beings. Now you can do whatever you like because we have the capacity to eat whatever we like. But the species-specific diet of human beings, what we evolved on for millions of years was a diet of fruits and vegetables. Fruits are what our body, what our brain evolved on, whatever. This is what we are as a species. We're primates. We're apes. We're primates. We can't pretend we're not that. As much as you want, and we are only omnivorous through practice. In practice, we're not omnivores by design. You don't eat roadkill when you see it in the street. You don't even eat animals. This is the crazy thing. Like, people eat meat. They don't eat animals. Meat is like this processed food. It's a completely processed. Like, meat should be in the category of processed food. It's not a real food. Nothing in nature eats meat. They eat animals. Big cats eat an animal that they've just pulled down. The blood's still pumping through its body. It's still warm from being killed, and they're eating right into it. That's how animals are eaten in nature. We don't eat animals. We eat some kind of processed weird thing that comes from the body of an animal that isn't any relation to actually what a carnivore does or an omnivore does. And there's some weird history around why people do that, and it's like a sign of wealth, and I don't know. It's been shown again and again and again to be bad for your health. You don't need to do the research on that yourself. The research has been done. It's not good for your health. You never see anyone say eat meat for good health, because they're not allowed to say that. They can't lie to you. They can't say that butter. The fact that they're actually saying butter is good for you. I mean, butter isn't bad for you after all. They have to couch it in certain terms. They have to say it in certain ways. They can't say butter's healthy for you, because it would be illegal to lie. Because they know it's a lie. Because it's a bad food for you. It causes heart disease. It's going to contribute towards so many bad things, and it comes from a cow. There's no need to be eating dairy from a cow. I mean, when we were evolving in the forest over millions of years, this incredibly complex brain, this entire anatomy, this physiology, there was not 1 ounce of butter ever put in our ancestors' mouths back then. Never. It never happened. We were flooding our system with fruits and vegetables, and particularly sweet tropical fruits that fueled the growth of the most complex and intelligent brain that has ever been seen. And then we move away from that, and we move away from it. They try and eat butter and try and eat all animals and all sorts of rubbish. It's just not the same. Trees create the most complex biochemistry and create it in the form of fruit, and we move away from that to eat a big glob of fat that came out of a cow's udder, and add salt to it because it's got no flavour to us. Butter and fat and meat and cheese, and none of these things have any flavour. Milk has a little flavour because it's got some sugar in it, like a small amount of sugar, because it's for a calf, not for a human being who we like a lot of sugar. So butter's just like tasteless. It's tasteless, and people, oh, butter, No, you like salt, right? That's it. It's the salt that you're tasting. There's no taste. Who ever heard of a taste? Where our sense of taste for fat? We don't have a sense of taste for fat because we're frugivores. We're naturally designed to go and seek sugar and seek fruits and find the sweetest fruits because those are the ones that have the most calories to keep us alive and fuel our brain. And for this nonsense to come out again and again, we know that a low-fat diet is the way to go for health. That's what's always recommended by every single body, every health. You know, you go to the NHS, you go to the most conventional thing, and what they say is the same thing over and over. A healthy diet is a diet rich in fresh fruits and vegetables and low in saturated fat. A healthy diet is rich and high in fresh fruits and vegetables and low in saturated fat. They will often say as well, meals should be based on cereals and starches and stuff. Obviously, I'm into the raw foods, so I like meals being based on fruits, but that's what the standard information is. A low fat diet based on fruits and vegetables and meals based on starches. There's no, and you need to have butter and you need to have steak and you need, no, they don't recommend that because they can't recommend that because they know it's wrong. And this is what most of the world's always eating. You know, people in Africa aren't eating butter and stuff, you know, in Asia. They don't have access to that kind of food. They eat poor man's food and they stay alive longer even though they've got worse sanitation and worse everything else. And yet they don't get heart disease because they're not basing their diet on butter and all this. So this is a load of nonsense. And whenever anyone says to you, oh, you know, well, science can say one thing one day and then they change it and say something next. No, they don't. They don't. The science of nutrition is simple. A healthy diet is rich in fresh fruits and vegetables, low in saturated fat. Low in saturated fat means less than 5% of calories, at least less than 10%, but I believe it's less than 5% of calories, which is a low amount of meat, dairy, eggs, a very small amount. So this thing about butter is really terrible information. It's lies. It's not true. It doesn't match any of the, you know, the amount of work and money and effort put into nutrition research over the years and years and years to find this information, to find information that could help people, and it just gets shat upon basically by this kind of stuff where experts say, oh yeah, we now we're eating less fat and we started getting more fat, and it's nonsense. We don't eat less fat, we eat the same amount of fat. I mean, I eat less fat because I changed my diet. You know, I actually, you know, took into account some of this information and made a change. But most people are going to say, oh, that's good, I don't need to, I'll just keep on eating the same rubbish. And you know, they're going to die, what, 60 years early? You know? Human capacity for living about 120 years, 110 to 120 years. And people end up dying in the 60s in developed countries in their 50s and 60s of heart disease. You just take half of your life away. Half of your life gone. That's what having a diet of butter and meat and everything does to you. It's really crazy. So what you need to do is, I don't know, get in touch with the people that are spreading information like that and challenge them and let them know they're wrong. And my friend Klaus, also known as Carb King on YouTube, he got on a radio show and was talking about this stuff, and he did really excellent. He's got a channel called Carb King. I think that's still his channel's name. It might have changed. But you can hear him and how passionate he was in the radio. And the radio presenter was still like, yeah, but you can get research to show anything. No, you can't, man. You cannot get research to show anything. This research is solid. A healthy diet, high in fresh fruits and vegetables, low in saturated fat. Every single health authority will tell you that. So these people telling you to eat more saturated fat's fine or butter's fine is wrong. It's a lie. It's bad. It's irresponsible. And at the end of the day, there's a diet behind it. She's created the diet. The advice was fundamentally flawed. The creation of low-fat spreads prompted consumers to introduce more carbohydrates into their diet. That's a good thing. You know what I mean? But how are these spreads high in carbohydrate? You're trying to tell me margarine is high in carbohydrate? What is that? That's obviously not true. So that's going to be the end of this video. A bit of a rant for you there. We need to keep on challenging this information whenever you find it. this is not right or true or good. And if Zoe Harcombe would like to debate that on radio or whatever, then I know myself, a few other people would be happy to talk to her about that. Happy to talk to her about this information and how dangerous this is for people and how this is just going to keep the status quo going. And the status quo is, as I was saying, people dying like 50, 60 years before their natural longevity runs out. It's a crazy situation. Anyway, fruit is the truth. Make sure you eat fruit. That's the fundamental part of the human diet. That's how you'll get your body to start working semi well again if you start eating fruit for your diet. Look at the 8-10-10 diet. Come to the UK Fruit Festival, and that's me out for today. Fruit is the truth. Thanks. Bye.